Hello, Hon and May 13 here, back with another prediction video, this time for UFC Fight Night Paris. And we're going to start straight away with the main card, but I have got one extra bonus fight I want to talk about at the end of the video. But starting with the first fight on the main card, William Gomez versus Robert Richala. William Gomez, tall guy, fighting in France, home territory, kind of, if you know what I mean. But he's fighting a guy here who's literally the complete opposite style. Like, Gomez is quite a lengthy, likes to throw kicks, likes to throw jabs, likes to also do teep now and again to keep the distance. And he's fighting a guy who wants to get into range and he wants to use his stocky boxing style. Ridal, he's actually Richala, believe it or not, even by the name, he's actually a Polish fighter. And his only defeat came in KSW by soccer kicks, which obviously in the UFC you wouldn't be able to do. So that shows me that, he can be vulnerable on the ground, because to be in a position where you're on the ground in the Anthony Smith classic fetal position, you kind of have to, be vulnerable. But obviously in the UFC you can get away with being on your knees to another man. But yeah, he obviously likes to go for the takedowns as well. He's quite a stocky guy, quite powerful. Obviously Polish, you wouldn't expect that much wrestling style, but look at Gamrot, he's probably popularised it. A lot of Polish fighters tend to just be scrappers who like to stand up and throw shots like a Blachowicz. But yeah, the Polish wrestler is becoming a thing, guys, and you should be scared, because these guys are already tough. So yeah, it's a battle of styles. I'm going to go with Gomez. I just think he's got the better style in this particular matchup, the more likely style to come out on top, because neither of them are particularly powerful. Like, finishes that Richala's got have been like body shots against the cage and ground and pound kind of situations where he's got on top in dominant position. And I feel like to do that against Gomez, he's going to have to close the distance, but then he's also going to have to negate that kind of clinch that obviously the taller guy in Gomez is going to use. If he's going for the takedown, he can get his underhooks and then he can throw knees. He's longer. And he's also got good takedown defense. He's not known for being taken down, Gomez. He's pretty decent. He's, got that kind of kickboxing background, similar to a Pereira, who's also got pretty good takedown defense. And I just think it's a good matchup stylistically for him, and he's in his home crowd territory. And I also think that it's the debut in the UFC for Richala, so nerves. I just think it's all a bit too much for a debut, fighting in the backyard of your opponent, which we're going to talk about later with my bonus fight. Moving on. Fight number 2 on the main card. Axel Souza versus Rhys McKee. Now, Axel Souza, this is his debut in the UFC. He's a decent fighter. He's not particularly dangerous in any aspect. He's mostly just going to try and overwhelm you with output, and he's going to try and just bully you in the cage. And to be honest with you, fighting someone like Rhys McKee, that could be pretty possible, because Rhys McKee literally just folds whenever anyone puts pressure on him. So, to be honest with you, they must like this guy. He's also French. Got to add that in there. So he's fighting home territory yet again. Axel Souza, beautiful French name. So, Rhys, he's kind of had a comeback in his last fight. If you look on my channel, I actually have a video on my channel where I was going crazy watching Rhys get that win. That was one of the worst cards of the year, actually, the card where Rhys McKee got that win. That may have been the highlight. But yeah, he's fighting here Axel Souza, who I think is just really, really good at what he does. Pressure fighter. I've watched his regional stuff. French regional scene, not the most trustworthy. I'm not going to take too much from that, but he looks solid. And Rhys McKee's not that good, so I'm actually going to go with Axel Souza here. Even though people might be thinking, "Oh, McKee's making a comeback, he's learned." He's 4-1 in the UFC. Yeah, he's got a win now, Rhys, and that might give him the confidence. But if there's a type of fighter that I wouldn't want Rhys McKee being in there with, it is someone who puts pressure on you and tries to break you and bully you. And I feel like Axel Souza's the guy to do that. Very, very effective at what he does. And I think Rhys McKee, he prefers someone who's got a bit of more of a backwards kind of step in the style. Like, doesn't really like to get forward pressure on people. And I feel like that's how he got his win in his last fight. He backed up his opponent. This is the opposite. I think it's going to go back to typical Rhys McKee getting overwhelmed and quitting. So I'm going with Rhys McKee to get this one. Sorry, Rhys McKee to get beaten up in this one and probably finished in the first. That's how I see it. And for the first fight, by the way, I didn't specifically say the scorecards. I do think Gomis will win it 29-28. I do think that Borralho will get around because he is tough, and he probably will grapple in maybe one of the rounds and just get him against the fence. But yeah, as far as Souza versus McKee, I think McKee is going to get beaten in the first round by brutal ground and pound. I could even see him possibly getting just kneed against the fence and quitting Bo Nickel style. But yeah, I think he's going to get beaten up in this one and get finished early. Moving on, fight number 3 on the main card. Mason Jones versus Bojan Oki. Now, Borralho, another great French name. Oki, to be fair, he's not that bad, man. I've done a few. I've picked him to win quite a lot of his fights, and he's looked pretty decent in all of them. He's kind of like more of that. He's more of that clean cut kind of fighter. He doesn't like to get too messy in there, and he's fighting someone in Mason Jones who literally is just well rounded and can wrestle. He can do everything in there. He's a double champion Cage Warriors, which people might laugh at, but Cage Warriors fighters have the best record, and that'll go to one of my predictions later on, another one. But he's really, really solid, Mason Jones. And people say he didn't look good in his debut. I know that people would have expected a finish over an aging Jeremy Stevens, but to be honest with you, man, these veterans are hard to get out there when you've not got the experience they've got. So this is a completely different fight. I think there is a smart bet to go with Borralho here because I do think he has got the striking style to negate a Mason Jones because he's very, very clean and he doesn't overextend. So the takedowns aren't going to be given to him. And I do feel like Mason Jones kind of relies on drawing people in because he's all round just so good. He can use his striking to get the takedowns and make things a bit easier. I think he's going to get the win here. But I do think a good bet. There is smart money to be had on Borralho, but I just can't go over me because I just think Mason Jones is so much better than him in so many areas. I think Jones will use the defensive kind of striking in this one. I think he's not going to try and overextend because, like I said, he's fighting someone who himself likes to capitalise on people overextending and doesn't overextend himself. So I think he's probably going to use a lot of those kicks to the body that he likes to throw. I think he's going to use a lot of jabs, but those kind of jabs where you duck your head in and then you kind of go for the takedown so it looks like you're possibly going for it and it can distract your opponent and leave openings. So I feel like, the kind of Volk style jab, or maybe a better example is Daniel Rodriguez, who literally throws punches with his head halfway to his penis. But no, he's a lot more technical than that Mason Jones. I'm probably not giving him the credit he deserves. But yeah, Mason Jones is just a really good all-round MMA fighter. He reminds me a bit of Mad Spinell, if anyone remembers that guy. Ain't got the most power, ain't got the most finishing potential, ain't the most exciting, but he just gets the job done and he's got quality offense and defense. He just ain't got any gaps really to expose, and I think he's going to get the win here, even though he's fighting in the backyard of his opponent. I think he'll get a decision because I think it'll be that clear, and I think it'll be a 30-27, man. I'm going with domination. Mason Jones just shutting him out. Actually, I'm going with 30-27 Jones. I'm a big fan of him. I think it won't be an absolute runaway each round, but he'll do more than enough in each round where he can't get robbed. Moving on. Fight number 4 on the main card. Modestas Bukauskas versus Paul Craig. Now, anyone who's training with the mighty Tom Aspinall has got my full attention because them guys are locked in, man. If you watch their training videos, it's amazing what they do. Like, they've got like the Avengers of heavyweights and light heavyweights in there. Paul Craig, by the way, a lot of people don't know, did actually used to train with Aspinall. I saw a video a while ago where he was doing that. So yeah, I think this will be a a good one, but I do think that Paul Craig's probably past his best at this point, and he's just not got enough in the tank anymore to win. I think his best years were probably when he was getting fluke wins versus Ankalaev and Jamal Hill back in 2020 to 2022. I think now with this, he's just not got enough to do anything with his career to get to that next level. I just think he hasn't got enough age on his side, enough quality wins to even, get a title shot in the next future. I think he's just got to put together a crazy run that he just ain't got him at this point. And I think when fighters get to that stage, they tend to trade wins and losses. And I think in this one against Modestas Bukauskas, he's just too good. Got too much athleticism. He's not like one of these typical bottom ranked light heavyweights who's looks like just a fat middleweight. He's got a good build for the way he takes it seriously. I think him and Gustafsson are probably two of the biggest prospects at the moment, who we spoke about the other week. But yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty simple win for Bukauskas. I think I can see him getting a finish here, because Paul Craig in the Barnacle fight did show that he's good on the feet, but when you throw jabs, he gets frustrated and he leaves himself exposed, and that's how Barnacle managed to get the points winning that fight, by just Paul Craig thinking he was suddenly a striker, and he throws those goofy spinning attacks and kicks, and he leaves himself open, as Johnny Walker exposed as well. And that's the guy with the most spinning kick offense who leaves himself open, and even Johnny Walker managed to get to him in that. And I think he's fighting here someone who is really, really good at just keeping technical, keeping up straight, but doesn't expose himself to any takedowns either. He tends to use his leg kicks really slick, and he doesn't throw them and then try and go in with an attack immediately. He'll throw a leg kick and then he'll step back and try and lead something into the opponent to make a mistake to get a trap set. So I think it's going to be a good fight. It's going to be like the Barnacle fight, but with a finish, and I think it'll be slightly more entertaining, because I think Bukauskas has got slightly more versatility on the feet to Barnacle, who just tend to think he was becoming a boxer in the kind of mid part of his career, and then it got exposed against Rene Derrida. So I'm going with Modestas Bukauskas to get the win here, and I think it'll come by second round TKO, to probably to just overwhelming Paul Craig and making him make a mistake, and I can see him just landing some kind of knee to the body as he comes in, and then maybe following it up with an Aspinall style elbow. Weirdly, with him training with Aspinall, I could see a similar finish to the Aspinall Spivak fight, because chubbier, shorter, stockier guy coming in the inside, getting kneed and then elbowed, and I can just honestly see him getting finished with hammer fist from there. I think it's going to be an highlight win finish for Modestas, and I think he's going to be a player in the division. I think him versus Gustafsson / Anthony Smith clone has to be the big prospect fight in that division, to see who the next guy really is in the up and comers. So I think he's going to get the second round TKO, knee to the body, elbows for the specific prediction I can see in my head here, but I can see him hammer fisting him out for the finish, like Johnny Walker style, with Paul Craig clinging onto the legs like a dog. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, Benoit Saint-Denis versus Mauricio Huffy. Best fight on the card by far, besides the main event, but I actually think this fight's more intriguing than the main event, just because the division it's in a much more interesting division, in my opinion. Middleweights are interesting to me. But Benoit Saint-Denis versus Mauricio Huffy. Now, is this going to be the comeback story for Benoit? Is this going to be when the hype train starts again and we're going to be like, oh, this guy might still have it, he just had a tough run? I hope so, because Benoit Saint-Denis, you might have forgot. People forget, man, he has one of the most entertaining styles in UFC. He is a literal marauder. He comes at you, literally, I've said this before, it was one of my things I said, if before Benoit got beat by Moicano, he literally fights like the Chris Benoit theme song is playing in his head, no pun intended. Like when he's fighting, he literally just goes full retard. Like, he throws shots like a lunatic. He starts going for takedowns in between combinations, even though it wasn't needed. It's like, remember when Arnold Allen fought Dan Hooker and he just started going for takedowns when he was throwing punches? Another autistic fighter. Benoit is like that, but even more crazy and even more unhinged. I love watching him fight. Mauricio Huffy literally fights like Brazilian Conor McGregor. I know it's a cliche at this point, everyone's commented on it, but the one thing people don't talk about Huffy is that he literally does not have a gas tank whatsoever. And I know that people can say, well, that's another trait McGregor had, but no, this guy literally, if I actually think if he'd have not got that highlight reel spinning head kick on Green, the wheel spinning head kick, he would have actually possibly had been in trouble in that fight, because Green, watch that fight back, he was actually landing a few shots on the guy who's meant to be this slick guy. Like, people weren't doing that to McGregor early in his career. They weren't landing any clean shot. Green was literally not piecing him up, but landing shots what shouldn't have been landed on this slick striker who's meant to be like in the Matrix. So I think he could be in trouble in this fight, man. I actually really am backing Benoit in this fight, because I think that he can be one of the most entertaining fighters in the division. He can be like the continuation of like the Poiriers and the Gaethjes, because not many lightweights now actually fight like that. If you actually look at the lightweight division, this upcoming bunch are more grappling orientated and more like game plan orientated. We need the marauders in the division. Benoit, I need him to win this, but if I'm being real, Mauricio Huffy's probably just going to knock him out cold. I know that's a bit of an anticlimax. I know you thought I was going with that, with the Benoit. Come on. No, he's not going to get it, man. I think Mauricio's going to knock him out. But Benoit's going to give it a good go. I think he's going to fight similar to how we fought Thiago Moises back in the day, which was a fight of the night. So that really does bode well for us. I think Huffy's just going to catch him, man. I don't even think Benoit's ever fought a striker like this. If you look at his record, he's fought Moicano, Dustin Poirier, who's more just of an all-round brawler, slugger, especially at that stage of his career. He's not really fought anyone with this style, and I think he's going to get exposed for just not having any technique at all and just being a marauder. So I think he's going to get knocked out. I think it very well could come at the end of the first round as well. I can see Benoit starting to put that pressure on, and the way I see it happening is Benoit just getting closer and closer to landing his shots, closing the range, getting his distance management going, and then I can see him overextending, which I talk about all the time. Perfect thing to do in that position is just to lean back and throw the uppercut. Mauricio Huffy is in a stance literally already with the uppercut ready to go, man. That is not going to work out well for Benoit, and I can literally see him getting slapped with an uppercut. But like a walk-off, kind of like a backwards, like step back uppercut, like, you know, what we've not seen for a while in the, you know, the only person I've seen do that in recent times is probably Ilia Topuria. Like, that's the only person who has the technique to land shots like that, going backwards. But I feel like he'll be able to land that on on Benoit. Even Ilia Topuria actually in really good backwards, actually. That's a bad comparison. The only person I think who's good at landing shots like that is probably someone like even possibly, no, this will be the craziest comparison ever, but the only person who I think is actually similar to that, where they can land those shots going backwards, is probably a Dustin Poirier. Like, Dustin Poirier actually has a really good uppercut, and he landed actually one of those. That's how he actually put Benoit in trouble. A similar kind of shot when he was against the fence, and I feel like that's what we're going to get here. Benoit putting the pressure on against the fence. I could see a similar kind of shot landing, except he's going to go out cold and be flat on the canvas, which will be funny because the French fans are arseholes. I'm English, I'm designed to hate the French, so I'm sorry. So yeah, I'm going with a step back, uppercut, KO, flash, like all out of nowhere kind of thing. I think Benoit's just going to get slept, similar to how Matt Favola got slept versus Faraz Siam. Moving on. The main event of the evening. Nasruddin Imavov versus Kaya Borralho. I love this fight. I know I said the co-main's more intriguing to me, but this fight, as far as middleweights go, two of the most skilled middleweights in the division, in the UFC. Nasruddin, very, very, very impressive against Israel Adesanya in his last fight. Looked like he was going to be the next title contender, but obviously they had to give it to Khamzat so he could hug DDP to death and bar us and ruin the division and probably not fight for a year. But Nasruddin didn't get the shot. He's fighting Kaya Borralho, who literally, out of all the fighting nerds, he's like the dad of the group. He like literally has probably started the hype. He's the first time, like when I picture those glasses, what we see everywhere now when he's coming like the hype machine, the first guy I remember wearing those was Borralho, the first guy who brought hype to that thing. And I feel like he's really, really become the most, probably the most technical out of the fighting nerds as far as orthodox wise. Like we talk about Mauricio there, his teammate fighting on this card. That isn't really how you would picture technique, like the way he throws punches, he lunges in, he's got athleticism and movement. Like that's kind of style where you can only do that while you've got that athleticism. Once he goes old, Mauricio Huffy will be not very good, like a Bernard Hopkins kind of thing. Sorry, like a Roy Jones Jr. type of thing. Similar to like a lot of these explosive fighters who in the later career just don't have it anymore. You know, McGregor, people like that. You know, you rely on athleticism. People like Diaz, people like Tony Ferguson, they rely more on durability. Well, I feel like Kyle Borralho literally relies on both of those things, and he needs to really impose himself here because Nasruddin is the better fighter. And if we're going on pure technique and power and physical gifts, you've got to go with Nasruddin here because Borralho is literally just a typical Brazilian slugger man. The only thing that separates him is he is the most technical of the Brazilian sluggers. Like he doesn't overextend. He doesn't even put his chin in the air ever. He always has his chin down, and he doesn't overthrow, but he doesn't also go for takedowns and force them. He tends to just let them come to him. Like I was mentioning the previous fight, you know, with Mason Jones, he likes to do that. He's technical, exactly, but also as I said about Mason Jones, he throws punches like this. That's kind of how Borralho throws punches. He's got his head down, but he is. I'm not, you know, he's the most technical guy. As I've said, I'm not saying he isn't, but he's still got gaps there in his striking, what can be exposed by a guy who literally fights like a boxer. I'd say Borralho's an MMA fighter who throws MMA striking, and Nasruddin literally fights like a technical striker who's a kickboxer or as a Muay Thai. Maybe like a mixture between the two because he does tend to, as he did to Adesanya, like we've literally mentioned in the last fight, caught him with that shot going backwards through the hook, which is more of a boxing technique, you know. So he's probably going to throw a lot of hooks, and he's also going to mix in some of the more straight shots with the kicks and teeps, and then he's going to probably push him back and look for him to go in with those head down shots so he can catch him with something, possibly even a flying knee. Don't be surprised people forget that Nasruddin has a mean knee, and I could see him landing that and maybe putting out Kyle O'Beer. So don't be shocked if that happens. But my prediction is actually going to be a typical middleweight decision. And if I was to go with a guy who I'd pick in a fight that's going to be going deep and it's going to be down to who's got the most dog in him and who's got the most stamina, I have to go with the guy with the endurance who relies on that, and Borralho. Nasruddin has the more natural gifts, the more explosivity, the more power. But if I'm expecting a fight to go to the decision, I'm going with the guy who's got enough technical ability to get some rounds, got enough grappling ability, and he's got enough finishing potential to make it like where he's going to be putting him in these positions on the ground where the judges are going to think, yeah, he's going for the finish there. I'm going to give him that round. So I'm going with Borralho to actually win a close decision. I'm probably going to go with 46. No, I'll probably go for 49-47. I think Borralho's probably going to get hurt in one of the rounds and get a 10-9. Sorry, a 10-8 maybe, and we're going to think it's over, and then he's going to rally back and get the win. I actually think that's probably my main accurate prediction of the main event. I think Borralho will get badly hurt at one point and we'll think, here we go. And then he'll gas out Nasruddin and then he'll come back and he'll win and he'll get the rally in and the fans will start to get really quiet and we'll think, oh, this is where the tide turns. Because I think the French fans are very, very fickle. I'm not slagging off the French again, but I have to say, when the fighters are getting beat up, they do tend to turn into a literal church. You don't hear anything. And I think if he can get that silence of the fans after that, he'll start to really get. Because let's be honest, Borralho is an apex warrior, man. He's the true apex predator. He's Randy Orton, man. When that crowd goes silent, he's going to feel at home and start letting his shit go. So that's all I'm saying, guys. I think it's going to be a close decision, but Borralho's going to get it 49-47. He's going to get hurt at one point. Moving to the bonus fight of my prediction video. I had to get this one in here. I might start making this a thing where I pick one off the prelims. I used to actually do all the prelims, but I realised it was so useless with how the UFC makes fights now. But there was one prelim I have to pick here to talk about before I finish this video. Harry Hardwick versus Kawi Fernandez. Harry Hardwick, man, I followed this guy. Always been my favourite Hardwick brother. If you go on my channel again, I watched his last Cage Warriors fight. I posted some live reaction videos for that. He defended his belt, technical decision, but he looked good in that fight. You know, I wanted him to get signed after that. Cage Warriors featherweight champion, defended the belt twice, defended it last time against Javier Mendez, whatever he's called. Oh no, that's Khabib's coach. Javier, one of the Mexican guys. He defended his title anyway against him. And looked good in that fight, actually. People like think it was a technical decision. Literally, it was his opponent who bitched out in that fight. So I think he's going to win this fight, man. Everyone I've seen is picking Kawi Fernandez, but I think Harry Hardwick is really good. He's got amazing ground control. He's got really, almost like a wood chipper, how he just chips away at his opponents and makes them really, really want to reconsider being in there with him. Like, he's just so good at breaking people. And people are saying, oh, he's coming up to lightweight, though, against Kawi Fernandez. Who gives a shit, man? Lighter man skill. The only way I'm worried when a fighter comes up, right, because the lighter guys have always got the more crisp strike and the better technique, is if the guy they're coming up against has power. Kawi Fernandez, who is he finishing, man? Decision. Literally, he does not finish people. Who is it he beat? I think it was Karnofli who he beat, actually, in his debut, I believe, Fernandez. That was his best performance in the UFC. He's fought no one. He's fought... I know people are going to say in his last fight he beat Kutaladze. Bum. He's not good. He's been exposed a long time ago. The reason Fernandez was the underdog and people say, oh, he was the underdog and he got the win is because people know that Fernandez is not that good. He's fighting a Cage Warriors featherweight champion, man. I'd go out to say that Harry Hardwick has probably been more impressive even though he's been on the regional scene, because he's beaten people in 5-rounders and he's had to go the distance and show things. I don't even think Fernandez has been champion even regionally. He hasn't got that break mentality that Harry Hardwick's got, where he'll want to make you wish you never considered taking this fight. And that's what he does, man. He breaks people. His last opponent, as I said, quit. Javier Martinez, whatever he's called. Latino. What can I say? Don't remember the names. But yeah, he's fighting Fernandez here. I think he's going to get another one of those on his list, if you know what I mean. He's going to get another one of those type of names on his resume. So I'm thinking Hardwick decision here. I don't think he'll get the finish. He's the smaller guy, but I think he'll be faster, more crisp, and I think he'll get a 29-28 decision, but I think it'll come in a very impressive manner where he's going to be really sharp. And do you remember when Vasenik fought the same guy, actually? Kutaladze, the same thing. One of those guys, bald guy with a beard. When he fought him, he literally looked like really impressive for Senek in that fight and just give it away late. I think we're going to see a similar thing in this fight, but Hardwick's just so resilient, man, and so on you, and he won't let that lead slip. And I just think he'll keep going and keep going. I think he'll lose the first round just simply because of the jitters and the fact that he's a bit getting his range. He fights a bit like Piotr Yan in that way, not in style. Don't be expecting Harry to come in there throwing like crisp kickboxing techniques. He's not that guy, but he's similar to that in that way. And he's a bit like Nate Diaz more than any other fighter, I'd say. But he's going to come in there and he's just going to overwhelm in the second. And I think he'll get more of that kind of Sean Strickland style snowball effect. And then I think by the third, he's going to look really impressive and he's going to start emoting, man. He's going to start showing off what he can do. Because we've seen that in all of his performances. When he gets comfortable, he can start really, really piecing you up and looking like a proper contender. Because he ain't a contender, man. He's a champion. and he's contender now. He's coming to the big leagues. But this guy, I'm high on him, and he literally, when he starts piecing you up and getting that snowball effect, it looks like when Strickland starts hammering down, or when Nate Diaz starts throwing the shots, and he's looking like really, really good. That's kind of what it looks like, and perfect opponent as well, in my opinion. A lanky striker who thinks that he's going to go in there and knock you out, and if he doesn't, he's going to break. And that's Hardwick's deal. That's what he does. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'm glad that you've. I'm glad to be back because I hadn't done a video last week. I did do a video for the pay-per-view though, but I couldn't upload it. I got locked out of my account. Not my fault. But I'm back and I'm looking forward to this card. Take care, and I'll be back with some videos later with my reactions to fights.